With the mic on. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chair DeBoer,
Here.
Representatives Linting. Here. Paquette.
Here.
Fox.
Yes, ma'am.
Coons.
Present.
St. Germain. Pavlo.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Colzar.
Here.
Weiss. Here. Burns. Madam Chair, you have 9 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Vice Chair Linting moves to adopt the minutes of the November 5th meeting without objection. The minutes are adopted. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The committee will now take additional testimony on House Bill 5044, sponsored by Representative Wendzel. I do anticipate taking additional testimony on this bill at future committee meetings from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and other stakeholders. But today we have testimony from the Autism Alliance of Michigan. Welcome. If you could please introduce yourself and begin when you are ready.
Is that better? Good morning, Chair DeBoer and committee members. Thank you for inviting us back. I'm Heather Eckner. I serve as the statewide director of education for the Autism Alliance of Michigan. We are a statewide nonprofit, so we serve all lanes across our great state of Michigan, and my work focuses on helping to remove barriers to access for students with disabilities, those with autism, but it's also disability-wide and system-wide. So we are one of the primary supporters of House Bill 5044, and I just want to first say that I've either been physically present for the hearings that have happened so far or have watched the replay. And through all of it, it is very, very clear that all members of this committee are working really hard to understand the elements of this bill, the policy, the interplay of it. But what has also stood out to me is that it really is coming first and foremost from a place of being student-centered and trying to figure out what is going to be most helpful to students with disabilities. So for that, I thank you all, and I really appreciate it. Like, that really, truly has been very clear. And so, you know, I come to this experience from a number of different roles. My teaching experience, I'm an educator by training. I've taught both in Ohio and Michigan. I've taught in private country day school settings, traditional public school settings, charter school settings, students with high English language learner populations. And with all of my experiences, I've been a general education teacher. I was not a special education teacher by training. But in every single classroom that I had, there were students with disabilities, because fundamentally, disability is one of the kind of demographics of human population that crosses everything else, right? Wherever you're located, disability doesn't pay attention to income level or language or race. It's everywhere. It's in every school setting, as kids with disabilities should be. So fundamentally, all students are general education students. For some, because of their disability, they require additional services and supports and specialized instruction. And a lot of that comes about then because of our federal and state laws that provide those obligations and those protections. So what you've heard a lot in testimony so far is kind of this combination effect of, we've got, HB 5044, and then we heard a lot of testimony from school associations about, we've got this guidance document and we've already got these obligations under the law. And so really the clear distinction that I'm hoping to help make today is, yes, two things can exist simultaneously. The obligations that school systems have to serve students with disabilities appropriately through educational access, that's the federal law, IDEA. Our Michigan rules are called MARS for that. This guidance document, I hope it does get widely implemented. I hope it does get embraced and used with fidelity. We know currently in our system there are a lot of barriers for kids with additional needs. Our outcome measures as a state in Michigan are some of the lowest across every angle that you look at nationwide. So we collectively, as people who care about kids, families, and education in the state, have a lot of work to do together. yes to this. Yes to school districts building their capacity, hiring people with the appropriate certifications and background so that classroom teachers and students in classrooms can be supported. Yes to all of this. And these things can walk alongside each other. What HB 5044 does is it fundamentally talks about medical necessity accommodation and access under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Different law, different federal law. This is a reasonable accommodation for those that need it when it's connected to what is prescribed and recommended by clinical care providers. Where we have the common ground are mostly autistic kids in public school settings. That school setting is the common ground. Where those kids are now being educated is this confluence of, yes, we have to meet their educational needs that are required by law, which is the floor, not the ceiling. And we have outside clinic or community-based providers that are working with these kids outside of the school setting and want to be able to come into the school setting to provide those additional medically necessary accommodations. And we've heard a lot about least restrictive environment and just concerns about like how would this impact kids and school settings. And so I think those are all really valid concerns and questions that have come up. What I'm going to share with you today is, so I come at this as, an educator first and foremost before I was a parent, but then I am the parent of two kids, both are autistic, and my oldest, Marcus, is currently a junior in our local public high school, and his lifespan really kind of mirrors the trajectory and history of the Autism Alliance of Michigan in terms of its formation and the autism insurance benefit that passed. And so when my son was first born, he was born in 2008, and just after the first several months before he even turned a year old, our pediatrician had said to us multiple times, I highly recommend you get evaluated through Early On, which Early On is our state's birth to 3 special education program. And because he wasn't meeting developmental milestones, like she just kind of saw this coming. So, before he even turned 1, we did the Early On evaluation, and he was found eligible. We received an individualized family service plan, an IFSP at that time. And for those early years, they really focus on, as much as possible, the home-based setting, parent education, like how can you be the best parent to your child and nurture and support them now that they have some additional needs. But by the time children in that kind of early intervention window, before they turn 3, you start talking with this combination now of the school team, too, of transitioning to the IEP, the Individualized Education Program, because that's when IDEA starts to pick up and kick in. So there's different parts of IDEA for that. So we started talking about that, that transition when my son was around 2.5. And the only placement that was presented to us by our local school district was a self-contained classroom with all kids with autism. So I go back to the concern of this committee that has been raised about least restrictive environment. Sometimes the first option that's given to families, or the only option that's given to families, doesn't start there, right? So that was our placement. It was 4 days a week, half days. And, as a former, as an educator, at that point I was a stay-at-home parent, but as somebody with a master's degree in education, I hear all of that and I'm like, well, shouldn't we at least try, a regular classroom, like preschool setting? Shouldn't we try something out in the community? And the school team was kind of like, yeah, go ahead, let's see how that goes. And so I did. I enrolled my son in a community-based preschool setting, and the difference between how he presented and behaved at home versus a classroom setting with lights and other kids, and I don't know if you've been in preschool settings, but sensory tables with lots of objects or sand, that kid could not come within 3 feet of a sensory table because everything in the table came out of it and was like airborne. He consistently eloped or left the classroom in search of large fans that were in the building. There were a couple of vacuums in the classroom that he really became fixated on. It's called perseveration, and just would only go to the vacuums. And it was just really chaotic, and the preschool staff were like, we don't know what to do. So the school team came in, they observed him, they were like, this is lots of great data. And so then they said, okay, why don't we enroll him in our self-contained setting? And I said, okay, we gave it a try. So at that point, though, I'm thinking like, but have we really thought through all the different angles of this, right? Like, okay, we gave it a try, but like, it wasn't successful, but now it goes from one end of the continuum to the other, right? Like a pretty big gap. So I started what all parents do when they're down this journey is you talk to other parents. And there's a great kind of sense of shared community amongst the disability community where there's really a lot of generosity of parents who have come before you, sharing what they know and have learned. That was true, too, of things like passing along contact information for BCBAs that were providing applied behavior analysis. So at this time in Michigan, the autism insurance benefit hadn't yet passed while my son was at this kind of 2.5, 3-year-old stage. There were very few certified behavior analysts being kind of produced out of the training pipelines in the state. And very, very few across the whole state. And, like a good sitter, kind of like that contact information, people want to hold on to it because it's like you want them to be available for you. A good BCBA's contact at that time really was like kind of held on to like gold. But a parent with autistic kids about 10 years older than my son, I was talking about like, I really want to try just regular preschool, but like he's tearing apart the sensory table and leaving to go look for fans. Like, what do I do? And she said, have you looked into finding a BCBA? Have you tried ABA? And I'm like, what's that? And she's like, well, we've been working with somebody for years. It's really helpful. They come in and they kind of look at the environment and they work with the individual to kind of get them to be like functionally able to like sustain different things. And I said, who's your BCBA? And with that generous spirit, she did share her name and I connected with her. And so my son started with ABA provision first in our home setting, and then, he's going to his half-day programs in the public school district self-contained classroom. But once we worked with him a little bit in our home setting of just things that are called like reciprocity, like kind of give and take, being able to kind of transition, some of those functional skills, we thought, you know what, let's give this a go again and see if we can enroll him in half-day community-based preschool. So I went to a different preschool, change locations, give it a new lease on this. And in that community-based preschool, I said, he had some past experience with some challenges. We've been working on some functional skills. And what I want to offer you is our behavior analyst, our BCBA, is willing to come in and support him in the setting. The community-based private preschool never hesitated. They said, of course. Absolutely. Come on in. Let's work together. So we talked about the environment. Our BCBA came in and, kind of said, well, here's how I can help, and here's where I'll step back and let you lead. And we integrated Marcus in a community-based preschool with BCBA support front-loaded. And guess what? There were no sensory tables unleashed. He didn't elope from the classroom. He was able to sustain and be in that setting. That was his LRE at that age. That was his least restrictive environment. So then, while this is all happening in our personal lives, the Autism Alliance of Michigan was taking the lead on making sure that people had access to this through the autism insurance law that was passed in 2012. So just kind of on our timeline, my son's now 4 when this passed, and I can pretty much guarantee you that Marcus, my son, was probably one of the first kids to receive that benefit because I was tracking what the Autism Alliance was doing. I was going to their information sessions. And when former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley signed the legislation, the next day I was on the phone with our insurance company saying, okay, we qualify, like we need this, we're doing it, like I need your help to like be able to make sure that I can cover this. And I called every single day. Who do I need to talk to? Take the notes. And so I guarantee my son was one of the first ones covered, and our BCBA was probably one of the first providers that were pulled into that system. So then that opened up a lot of greater access for us with that insurance coverage. And we kept working with our BCBA in the community-based setting. So then if I think about, like, at this point in time, he's in the self-contained public school district place, like, setting, then I'm taking him to, like, the community-based setting. We're doing that for multiple years, right? And we're seeing lots of growth being around non-disabled peers. Again, his public school district classroom placement was 13 autistic kids, like all kids, with similar needs, very structured environment, no integration. And so then we did that for 2 full years, and then we thought, okay, we'll do a Young Fives program in the community and not do the self-contained classroom, because we're thinking he's making progress. The whole time we're thinking, how can we get him to a point where we actually don't need the BCBA support, right? Like, we've supported him, we've intervened enough, and then we can kind of back these things out. So we enrolled him in a full community-based Young Fives program at that time, and we were able to kind of, our BCBA would still go in, but she was always looking for, like, times to step back, or just, we were talking about it constantly of saying, like, maybe she's not needed. So we got to the end of that Young Fives year where Marcus really was not requiring as much support, but was able to sustain his learning in that, integrated setting with non-disabled peers. Again, that's his least restrictive environment, right? So then we began our transition to kindergarten, and we were talking with our neighborhood school that we can walk to. And so if you think about it, at this point, he's had 3 years of early on intervention, 2 full years of special education preschool on top of us providing community-based preschool with BCBA support, and a year of Young Fives. This is a lot of early intervention, right? So his team, his care team at that time, was his pediatrician, a developmental behavioral pediatrician, and our BCBA. Everybody was saying, and the school team, his preschool school team, were saying, this is like the poster child of early intervention. Like, there is not a kid more ready for kindergarten than your kid. Like, we are all so excited, and I was too. So we went into his kindergarten year in our neighborhood school with his IEP. And it's really important to note that autistic children in classrooms are very often kind of like the canary in the classroom. So anytime, autism as a condition kind of comes with it a lot of heightened sensory needs, a lot of challenges with regulation and environments that have a lot happening in it, and a lot of challenges. And so if you think of the context of a typical classroom setting, there's a lot going on. So if there's escalated behavior by anyone, or just a lot of things kind of happening, autistic kids are the ones that kind of ramp up even quicker, right? So they really are the canary in the classroom. And kindergarten for Marcus was an unmitigated disaster. The school team really didn't have great ways to kind of support his needs. When other kids were having challenges, he'd ramp up. There were numerous times where the kindergarten classroom had to be cleared, meaning every single person had to leave that classroom because my son was having a meltdown and was really dysregulated. And this is all happening when he's a 6-year-old in kindergarten. We convened like you do as an IEP parent. We met with the team and we're like, what can we do? Can we bring in support? Can we bring in our BCBA to support you? And the staff in that school building said, no, we got this. We got this. They did not have this. There were so many issues that year. My son was coming home upset. I was getting phone calls. A lot of times autistic kids will, because they have a little bit of trouble with same-age peers connecting, they'll often connect to like other objects. So my son had this mouse. It was actually a cat toy. We got at Meijer that you pulled the string and it like vibrates. It was horrific. I hated that thing, but he saw it one day, had to have it. Then that became like his friend for years. The number of Mousies we went through, we called it Mousy. I've probably purchased like a dozen over the years to replace it. But anyway, so he had that with him at school, and the school staff started taking that from him and saying, if you don't behave, we're going to throw Mousy away. Those were the kinds of tactics being used, right? So what did I do? I knew, and again, I'm somebody that, like, I have knowledge, I have access, I'm advocating for my child. This is not available to every parent, right? Like these options. But I requested, because I knew there was a district behavior support team. I said, bring in the district behavior support team. The person who trained that support team was Kelly Rogers. She's one of the trainers that testified before this committee last week on behalf of the education associations. There's a project in Michigan called the START Project. It's excellent. I've taken the training through it. Kelly's one of the primary trainers. Like, everybody should have this training. But guess what? It's optional. So the staff working with my child had not had it. We brought in the district support team. They did observations, they made recommendations, but guess what? Those were all optional. And so my son's kindergarten school team was like, no, we're not gonna do these things. And it just kept escalating. It was a horrific experience, a horrific year. So then as a parent, I made a choice that was available to me. We left that school. I submitted for in-district transfer within our district, and we moved him for his first grade year to a building that I knew, because of the reputation, that the principal was a former special education administrator, and he was amenable to working with parents with kids with disabilities. Our kids' access should not be reliant on knowing that. We should be able to go to our neighborhood public school and get what our kids need and have collaborative access to supports and services and not have to move them from building to building. But, transportation was not an issue for me. I was able to take him every day and pick him up. But starting in first grade, he attended this other school, first grade through fifth grade. And from day one in first grade, when we started implementing his IEP, that school allowed access to his BCBA. Guess what? A classroom was never cleared out again. He never had to be, taken down to the office for meltdowns. We were able to integrate both his IEP provisions by the school team and the community-based clinical provision of our BCBA, who knew him and had been working with him for years, working together in collaboration in the building. It was all, though, like kind of gentlemen's agreements, right? Like we didn't document it in the IEP, because then that means the school would have to pay for it. So there was this agreement. Now you might think to yourself, well, if it's possible, why don't we just go with that? Why do we need HB 5044? It's because it should not take everything that it took a family to get to that point. Think of the barriers of access for people that transportation's an issue for them. They just don't know how to work the system. They don't know how to make these choices. People should be able to go to their neighborhood school. Kids should be able to be integrated in the least restrictive environment. His experience in that first through fifth grade years then was kind of this like little bit of a roller coaster ride, that different years, different teachers. His fourth grade teacher, as an example, I'm pretty sure he spent more time in the hallway than he did in the classroom that year. But when there'd be behavior spikes, I would say, can we bring our BCBA back in? And because it was the same administrator all those years, he allowed it. And we were able to bring it back in and not be removing him from the least restrictive environment. It's important to note that at no point in time did our BCBA, or was it ever, it never was discussed to say, she didn't ever pull him out of the classroom. She was always worked into it. She was always with him, with his peers. She was always trying to keep him in the least restrictive environment. My son went through 7 years, I think total, receiving ABA services, and never once had it not in a natural setting, meaning our home, school, or community. He never was pulled into like a solo room. For 7 years, he had ABA services, and that was never even like anything that was contemplated. So some of this kind of, projection of like, oh, they're going to take the kids and pull them out and move them into a closet down the hall. That is not the intent of this policy. The intent of this policy is to open up this access so that these artificial barriers can't continue to be in the way of kids with needs that we want to stay in the least restrictive environment. We want to be with their non-disabled peers. We want them accessing educational settings. It really is about function. And I jump up to today. My son is a black belt. He's working towards his Eagle Scout. He was disappointed that he missed 2 questions on the PSAT. He is exceptionally bright. He should be college bound, like he's expecting to go to college. He really is a success story. And when I think back to what our experience has been, and I actually asked him if he wanted to come today, but he has a test. So he said, Mom, I'm not going to miss school. I have a test. So I was like, good choice. But when I think back to his school experience and where he is now and what kind of student he is now in his community, he's on the rowing team. I mean, by every measure, he is a success. and he will be a success, and he will be a productive Michigander beyond his school years. But how did we get there, and what were the critical elements? Had we not been able to work with our BCBA in that early intervention window and in the school setting in the ways that I can't imagine what our experiences would have been or where he would be today. And I have to tell you, because he's getting older, he's growing into a young man. He'll be an adult, pretty soon. He turns 17 this month. I talk with him about this now, and I say, are you okay with me sharing your story? Are you okay with this? And he said, yeah. But then I said to him, I'm like, we had 2 BCBAs in those 7 years, Ms. Angie and Ms. Jess. And I said, do you remember them? And he said, I actually don't. He's like, I don't even remember them. He said, but what I do remember is my kindergarten year, them taking Mousy and threatening to throw him away. Think about that. Think about the kids. What actually sticks in the experience in the minds of kids? They're not going to remember these people, the BCBAs, the professionals coming in and out. That's actually by design. Like, that means that their role and their intervention was done exactly as it should be. So I see it as a sign of success that while my son received ABA services, and a lot of it in the school setting for 7 years, he does not remember his BCBAs, as it should be. He remembers positive school experiences, but even as an almost 17-year-old, every once in a while, he'll talk about that kindergarten year. That has affected him throughout his entire life. 1 school year's experience. So I hope that just illustrates some of this interweaving of this is possible. We heard in testimony last week from the school associations that when they want to bring in outside providers, they know how. They set up MOUs, they make it clear who's paying what. This is possible. So if there are any challenges with the current policy, let's work through clarifications. Let's work through what we need to get over to make this possible. But these 2 things, one's not in replace of the other. They are intended to work side by side, collaboratively, for the benefit of the students and the staff in schools trying to support kids. One other quick note as I kind of close. I think back to my son's self-contained preschool setting, those other 13 kids. As you might imagine, we became a pretty tight-knit group, right? We were all going through shared experience together. We've stayed in contact for years. While my son was integrated in the least restrictive environment, receiving support from our community-based BCBA, our district did hire 1 BCBA for about a district with about 20 buildings. 1 BCBA was on staff of the school. That person was so busy putting out crisis situations. Do you think she knew my kid existed? There was no way my son, his level of need, even though he's clearing out classrooms, he's getting sent out in the hallway, like he's struggling, that did not break even close to the elevated needs of some of the kids. He had at least 2 other peers from that original cohort. One ended up being abused by school staff because their behavior was so challenging. It was a criminal case that was taken all the way through to court and found to be credible. And another was physically violent in school. That's what that BCBA was set upon to do. So I feel for school systems that are really trying to build capacity. We, as the Autism Alliance of Michigan, are in support of that. We want this work to continue. We want school systems to be able to have appropriate trained personnel. We want them to have capacity. That is going to take years to get there. It's been years that they've been working on it, and we haven't reached the goals, right? So yes, let's keep moving forward, and let's capitalize on an existing workforce that is covered. The schools aren't going to have to cover it. We can make the MOUs to make that clear, and are ready to come in and support kids with these elevated needs. And we have a lot of examples of these success stories that it does make a difference. So I appreciate you all giving me the time to kind of share that and sort of interweave a personal experience with sort of the why behind this bill. I'll happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. We have a question. Representative Linting, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, you don't have a question? Oh, thought you did. Did anyone else? Yes, Representative St. Germain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when we talk about school setting,
Yeah.
are you referring in the classroom or a separate space?
So my son, all those years that he had his BCBA coming in, never once left the classroom for any of the intervention. It was the general education classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of good in the bill, of course, but this is what I'm struggling with, and it's, so my daughter's a third grade teacher, second year. She has 32 kids in her classroom. Out of that 32 kids, 5 of them are reading at a first grade level. And then there's another 4 that there's a couple that have autism and then some physical disabilities as well. The problem is there's no space. They are packed in there like sardines. I think she would agree. I shouldn't say it like that, but you know what I mean.
No, I understand.
So I guess I'm sure she, as a teacher, would welcome somebody giving her a break and taking that student outside of the classroom so that she can concentrate on everything else. So I guess that's where I struggle with this.
That's a great, third grade was where most of my years of teaching, I love third grade. Third grade's a magical year, so just a lot of respect to your daughter, and that's a lot to manage in a classroom, and you're right. I had classrooms that it was tight, right? What I would say to that is, and this is where, the balance, and you all know this well, of setting parameters and intention and kind of guide rails and expectations, but then allowing enough flexibility for every situation is a little bit different, right? Every student is a little bit different with what their needs are. That is the collaboration that should be happening, right? So in that kind of way, just like they pull out kids for reading groups. There's an ebb and flow in any kind of classroom where some kids are working on this, some kids are working on that, sometimes it's a whole group, some kids are coming and going. That's the collaborative planning process that students with disabilities who have IEPs, that's already built into the process. You convene with a team, you talk about what they need. Our BCBA joined every single IEP meeting that we had for my son. So if there had been, I was very adamant that I wanted him supported in the general education classroom because that was what was going to benefit him most. If he had different levels of needs, that it would have been most appropriate to maybe pull him out with a couple of peers even to do some, engagement activities, or to even have them work on something, but the BCBA is there to support the functional aspects of the student while they're engaging in their educational learning, right? So there's ways that this can be collaborative and balanced that should be able to blend in well with the classroom, but this bill will not solve for the facilities issues that we have in the system and class size issues. So I do recognize the example that you're raising, and that's where just the collaborative team planning and determination process would need to come into it. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Weiss.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony, appreciate your personal story on this. And I know I mentioned previously that my kids are just at the very beginning of this. They just aged out early on. Just started in a program in our local public school district, and fortunately, and unlike in your experience, they're integrated fully within a pre-K class.
That's great.
Although it's not as many days a week, but I think that's more of a funding issue we won't get into right here.
We're working on that too.
Yeah. My main question, I know we talked about this offline. I understand the purpose. I understand the intent.
Yeah.
I have some concerns around the specific language of the bill itself. And so in the bill, it states that any student who's enrolled in a school who has a prescription, recommendation, or order from a private healthcare specialist for medically necessary treatment to receive the treatment when the student is in a school setting in compliance with other applicable state laws. Private healthcare specialist is defined, but medically necessary treatment is not. And so, to me, that is just very vague. It could mean almost anything. And then also a recommendation versus a prescription. I have concerns around some of the specific language and how broadly it can be interpreted and what some of the implications of that could be.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. Just to be fully candid about this is it gets a little tricky whenever we're talking about different, within the context of the full continuum of disability, talking about different conditions, different disabilities. And oftentimes we'll try to write language broadly so that it's not just exclusively for one disability or another. And I think some of that is where you get this like kind of more global language around it. But bottom line, if we need to tighten up the language of the policy, I think the position of the Autism Alliance of Michigan would be, we can make this very clear because the research basis connected to medically necessary intervention, the body of research is predominantly around applied behavior analysis for autistic individuals, autistic children mostly. So that is why the insurance benefit was passed and put into place in 2012. That is what the insurance covers. So I think we, as the Autism Alliance of Michigan, being supportive of this bill moving forward, if we need to tighten it and clarify it to like really make that lane clear, the one example I would give is just, it doesn't currently exist, but I think we were trying to think future globally and being more broad with the language that we hear a lot from parents of kids with Down syndrome, that ABA benefits them too. And I'm sure it does. And I believe that. Actually, autism is like one of those global neurodevelopmental conditions that really what helps kids with autism is part of universal designs and supports and really is beneficial for all kids. But guess what? The research basis wasn't built on kids with Down syndrome. It was built on autistic kids. The insurance benefit that relied on that research basis didn't include kids with Down syndrome then because we couldn't connect those dots. So there may come a future state where, a future place where the research is done and it's shown that other disabilities are benefited similarly by ABA. So I think we were kind of thinking maybe too far in the future, if I'm being fully candid. And we were really trying to be responsive to our partners in the disability space with that. But if I'm just drawing a straight line, because of the autism insurance benefit, because of the research basis connecting ABA to autistic kids, this policy really, the kids that meet that criteria are autistic kids in our public schools right now. So I don't know if that would help we tighten it somehow.
Thank you. Representative Pavlo. Or was it? Yeah, Pavlo. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love your energy and enthusiasm. Thank you. On a social level, is your son aware that he received services other than the other students in the classroom, and what kind of an impact did that have?
He really, so he himself really wasn't, you know, it's so interesting. I didn't even think to do this, but I wonder if even the kids in his class, those elementary years, even remember his BCBAs being there. He doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're a professional, which BCBAs are some of the like most certified, credentialed, like they have a high ethical kind of expectation and bar. If they're doing their job right, nobody notices them and people don't remember them. They don't draw attention to themselves. They are there to kind of weave in and support that individual in whatever setting they may be in. And the preferred settings to do that are natural settings, whether it's home, community, school-based. So he doesn't remember Ms. Jess, which was his last most recent BCBA. Mind you, these people are like, I have a place in my heart for them like family. Like, I mean, I still am connected to them, and when I see them, it's hugs all around. He does not remember that because that wasn't what stood out to him. But you know what? That's by design. It shouldn't stand out to him. But he was supported in this kind of sling and the other kids, I know from my own teaching experience, like kids are pretty welcoming and they love people. They love new people. They love people coming, you know, it's all part of like that social dynamic. And so as long as that is done in collaboration, in partnership, professionally, which I have no reason to think BCBAs wouldn't uphold all of those standards, this should be a benefit to really all the kids in the classroom, even though one particular student would be receiving the like targeted intervention, for sure.
Thank you. I believe we need more parents like you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, definitely that he remembers the success.
Yes.
And he remembers how to do things in a way that fits the system because he had an ambassador to help him with that. And he needed a reboot every now and then.
Yep.
And you bring in the right person with the right expertise and the right experience, it's not an obstructive process. It's working within the classroom, and the whole classroom benefits when everyone can work together.
Yes.
The whole classroom falls off the rails when they have to all leave the classroom because of one disruptive person.
Yes.
And we're not helping anyone in that process. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is very inspiring. We have a card from Matt Schuler, representing the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators. He does not wish to speak and opposes the bill. We have a card from Jordan Milham, who is there representing himself in support of the bill. Does not wish to speak. It just came in as an email. And we have another person, Casey Stratton from the Youth and Young Adult Advocate, Michigan Disabilities Rights Coalition, has a card of opposition for the bill and is not speaking. We have a couple letters from teachers, one that is going to retire early because of the crush of classroom variety in handling it, and would love and embrace having someone to help with different students of different need base. And another teacher who said the same thing from her former preschool and kindergarten educating. So thank you. We appreciate your personal story, and my goodness, you did not take this lightly. You did not give up. You continued to try to fit your own child in the way that would benefit him, and really in that process have a story to help many more children across the state, and we don't take that story lightly. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
So next, the committee will be hearing workforce testimony from Dawn Crandall, the Executive Vice President of Government Relations with the Home Builders Association of Michigan. Welcome, Dawn. Thank you for
so
coming in.
much. Wow, we're going from one end to the other today in testimony, but what an amazing story, and I agree with you, Representative. We need more parents like Heather engaged in their kids' education. So not only am I the EVP of Government Relations for the Home Builders Association of Michigan, which is how most of you know me, I am also currently the Executive Director of Skill to Build Michigan Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm of the HBA of Michigan. Although due to a generous donor, we are hoping to bring on at least a part-time executive director next year to be able to take this program to the next level because it has so much potential and there is so much need. So just a little bit about Skill to Build Michigan Foundation. It is our mission to work daily to cultivate, educate, and recruit into the residential construction industry. And as I mentioned, we are the nonprofit arm of the Home Builders Association of Michigan. We came into existence in about 2019, and being, a person who wears many hats, we realized there was an issue as we looked at ages, and I'll get into that in a minute. But as we talked to our members and the lack of available skill, and you look at the age of our builders in the state, it truly is having an impact on housing. And we are in a housing crisis. And these numbers always astound me. So we did a little research, and if you look at 2005, it was really the last time we did a big build in the state of Michigan. We pulled roughly 54,000 single-family permits. And from there, it dropped like a stone. In 07, we went to 15,000, and in 09, we went to just under 7,000. And so we have not built to the level that we should. Since really 2005, we should be building anywhere from 25 to 30,000 new homes a year based on the aging stock of our homes in the state. If you look at 2024, we pulled a little over 15,000. 2025, we pulled a little bit over 2024. And if you look at this year, we are at 10,457 single-family permits pulled per August. We don't have September and October data due to federal government shutdown. Census is not posting that. But as you can tell, these were not where we peaked and valleyed. These were just a little bit over previous year, a little bit over previous year, and we truly are not building what we need to build if Michigan is going to be kind of an economic an economic state where we bring economic development into our state, whatever form or fashion that may look like. So there's really 5 L's impacting the cost of housing. I want to focus on labor, but it's lumber, so your material cost, lot shortage, lending, laws, which are regulations at all levels, and then labor. None of those are really things we can control. Labor is one that we can have a slight impact on, and that's what I want to talk about today. So I mentioned that we have kind of a labor shortage. And if you look, we purchased the data from the state of Michigan on the licensed builders in the state. This is for 2025. You will see that the average age of a licensed builder in the state is 56. And then the median age is 58. If you look at the age ranges, and this is where it really becomes kind of clear that we have a labor shortage, or we're going to jump off a cliff soon, you look at what will be aging out, and I look at the 56 to 66 plus. You do the math on that, and it's 24,671 licensees. Now, keep in mind, there's about 55,000 licensees in the state of Michigan, so almost half are in that upper age range. And then if you look at what is in that 18 to 34, you're at about 2,400. So we are not doing what we need to do to bring in labor into our industry. And then we also talked about regulatory costs, and this is just an interesting little slide that I thought I'd throw in. This is from our National Association of Home Builders. They do this study every 5 years, so it's a national average, but it's about 25% of the cost of a home is in regulation before the home is even completed. Now, that being said, one of my members challenged that number in the state. He said, that can't be right. If it's a national average, it's probably because you have, California, you have other states that have more regulatory reform on them. And his projects came within about 2% of this number. So it's the national average is relatively close to what it is in Michigan as well. And in 2026, our National Association will have a new one. They do one every 5 years. So our focus really is looking at returning citizens, veterans, and students. We have partnered with the Michigan Department of Corrections. They have some amazing vocational villages in the state. If you have not toured one, I highly encourage you to do so. But we receive resumes from returning citizens through those vocational villages, probably about 4 sets of resumes about a month. And we have about 75 members that would hire somebody who has gone through vocational village and has their certificate. We've got about 75 that have it in carpentry. So they have a very specific program they go through. Again, if you have not toured it, I went through it. I was literally just amazed at the programs that they have and how well run they are. For veterans, yesterday was Veterans Day, so I like to thank all of our veterans. They really have the boots on the ground ability to come back into civilian life. They have the skills. One of the books that is in your packet, because I don't have enough on my plate, I actually authored a book specifically for veterans in the trades. And what we did was we went through the Department of Veterans Affairs in the state, and we found all the job descriptions in each branch and said, if you did this in the Army, check out this skilled trade in the back of the book. And we have about 300 employers that would hire a veteran that is looking to start their second service in residential construction. And if you look at the number of veterans we have in the state, there's roughly about 48,500 under the age of 40. And if you go back to that graphic and the dynamic of the licensees in the state, that's where we need people. So we are working tirelessly to get that book into the hands of veterans. They're available for all of you if you have events in your district that you would like to hand out books. We have a note card that has a QR code that they can upload their resume and a cover letter. We will connect them with an employer in the area because it is our goal to, build up. And they fought for the American dream. We feel like they should build it as well. Mm-hmm. And then students is really where we have a really strong foundation. This is where we started as we created Skill to Build Michigan. Dr. Piles, who oversaw career and technical education in the MDE, back in about 2019, came to me and said, we want you to create a certification for residential construction for our kids who go through construction trades. Now, those programs need to have a certification program in order for them to receive their Perkins funding, which is federal dollars. And I looked at Dr. Piles and I said, you do know I'm not a builder, right? Like, you want me to create a test for students to become certified in residential construction. And he said, I have faith in you, Dawn. You can do it. It was a process. It was a struggle. We all came out alive and a little bit stronger. And today we have close to 500 students that we have certified in our Skill to Build Michigan Foundation credential across the state. Goal is very similar, is to connect them with about 300 employers. They receive a certificate from me. They receive a congratulations on receiving your certification. It also has a QR code. We just yesterday learned that we received grant money from a part of our foundation down in Southeast Michigan, and they are granting us $5,000 so that for those students who get their certification, become employed with one of those 300 employers, we will give them a starter toolkit with the basic tools that they need to be successful. We have grown that program from 17, I started at 9 programs, moved to 17, and now we currently have 28 schools and programs using our certification program. I cannot be more excited. Randolph School in Detroit started this past spring, and they certified 47 students. They had 9 instructors, I believe, using our program, and it just continues to grow. It shows also within schools, we're very excited that we've had a wonderful partnership with school counselors. We're seeing them change kind of their messaging on, you don't need to go to college, you can get into a trade, whether it's ours or anybody else's, and have a successful, lifestyle without having 4-year debt or continuing to live in your parents' basement. We were very lucky in fiscal year '23 to receive about $2 million to deliver the Build Your Future book to every 8th through 12th grader in the state of Michigan. And the goal was that we wanted to partner and expand with school counselors, give them a tool that they could show students that maybe their career tech center was a good place for them to go if they were looking for an alternative. And then I mentioned the Veterans Guide to Residential Building. We were also fortunate to receive grant funding for this year that we were able to get into 8th graders, a revamped version of Build Your Future. And it's not just our industry. We showcase many trades because as an economy, we need a lot of labor in this state. For March's Reading Month, we are happy to give all of you books if you're interested. We have Billy the Builder Bear Builds a House. We have Katie Leads the Crew, and we have an activity book. And with that, I will leave you with if there are any questions.
Great, thank you, Dawn. Any questions? Oh, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, Dawn, I think I was just talking to one of my constituents the other day.
Leslie.
Who you know very well, Leslie Simpson.
She sits
who
on our board.
Just joined the board to Skill to Build, and she was telling me to get with you because you're a wealth of knowledge on all the shortfalls that you just described. And I know there's plenty of lawmakers here in Lansing that have tried to address the issue and are still looking at it. Some have introduced bills, some are still looking at it. But any assistance I can also give, as you probably know, my background's in skilled trades, and so there won't be one fix to this. And
Nope.
so if there's something that's being overlooked, I would love to be able to sit down with you to address that. And then also, fun fact is this past March when I was going around to different schools, I was reading the Billy the Builder Bear, and the kids really love this one. So
I mean, we'll give you the books to actually leave with every student you read to. So it's not like we give you one to read. We'll give, if you're reading to 400 students, 500 students, we will give you the books. They do not do any good sitting in my office or in a storage unit. So we are happy to provide those because we also partner with our members to go out and read. We're really, as Representative Wilson mentioned, there is no one easy fix. If there was a silver bullet to this and I had found it, I would be on a beach today. But There's so many things that go into fixing the housing crisis, and labor shortage is just one of those issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I featured Katie and Billy, the bear books too, and the kids just love it. They picture themselves.
They do
in a
tell me
different-
Billy's a little creepy in the eyes.
Oh, did they? I didn't hear that one, but but it is so exciting to watch them think about what they naturally love to
And
do.
they have great questions.
They do. I know. It's very important. Third grade's a great time.
Yes.
To introduce the menu for the choices for your life.
Yes.
Anyone else have a question?
No.
No.
Thank
Well,
you very
Thank you so
much.
much, Don. We appreciate everything you're working on, and what amazing success in such a short time. And you're just for such a time as this, we so have dropped the ball, and we have to pick it up and run out down the field like crazy.
Hoping by the time we get an executive director on, they can really build the program to that next level, because there's a lot of work to be done, and it just needs full dedication. So we're very grateful for our generous donor who has come forward and said, we want to help you out. We understand the importance. They get 2 years, and if they can be successful, that's amazing. And if not, it comes back to me.
Well, it's all those different students finding their way
Yes.
to a fulfilling career that changes the trajectory of the state.
I would also mention, if you have a career tech, like construction build program, and I know you have one in the Washtenaw County area, it's a very amazing program because it's a public nonprofit program in Washtenaw County. I think they're on their 58th year. They build a home every year. I would encourage you to tour one of those with the students. The pride that they will point out what piece of siding they put on the house or what window they installed. It's just such a great feeling, when you go through there with a student that's just so excited with their future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And there being no further business before the committee, the House Committee on Education and Workforce will stand adjourned.